3, 2, 1. What is going on, everybody? It is another episode of CriminalCast, episode 9, streaming to you live on a fabulous Wednesday evening, July 14th, on the YouTubes. Joining me here tonight are two of our regular criminals. I got Skip and Tosh in the house. How you doing, Skip?
I am doing very well. Wrapping up my personal favorite Ed Brubaker book. So excited to get everyone's thoughts on the conclusion and you know, obviously kind of wrap it all up. And also today is my daughter's birthday. She turned 14 today, one of my daughters. So that was a joyous occasion too. So feeling pretty good today.
Oh, fantastic. And then also joining me is the master criminal himself, the one, the only Eric Breen. How are you doing tonight?
I'm here and ready to fade into fade out.
You're ready to fade in to fade out.
That made no sense, but that's okay.
It doesn't have to. I just poured myself, well, I didn't pour myself anything. I just popped open a bottle of Sam Adams Beach Session IPA. I figured that might be appropriate for all the beachy stuff that we've had in this, as Definitely. Well as I got a finger of my favorite bourbon, Maker's Mark 46. You guys drinking anything tonight?
Breen, you drinking anything more exciting than my Gatorade over here?
Well, you know I don't do that, sir.
You could have an exotic flavor of Coke Zero for all I know.
Yes, I have. I have a Coke Mulatto Mogadishu or whatever it was you were drinking last night.
You know, if you ever find they make a Coke Zero Orange Vanilla, it's pretty good. If you can ever find it.
I've had that Coke Zero. I mean, I've had that Coke Orange Vanilla, and recently it was my stepdad's 55th birthday, like a few days ago, and he had mango Pepsi, and if it wasn't for that like vanilla orange cream Coke that I tried and was actually good, I would have never given that mango Pepsi a chance. But I looked at it and I was like, and I was like, you know what? That orange vanilla, it was actually good. And I tried it and the mango Pepsi was actually pretty good. So I don't know if you do, like, I don't know if there's a Pepsi Zero, Breen, but that might be up your alley.
There is a Pepsi Zero. And would you look at that? I actually like it better than Coke Zero. I don't know if Breen's ever had it, but I was pretty shocked.
I don't like Pepsi products.
There you go.
Well,
except for Mountain Dew. I do like Mountain Dew.
Brand loyalist over there. Anyways.
No, just kind of don't like Pepsi or Diet Pepsi.
Well, I hate Diet Pepsi for sure. And I prefer Coke over Pepsi. But the Pepsi Zero is legitimately, in my opinion, better than the Coke Zero. Like they nailed it. I like Coke Zero. There's only 2 diet drinks I'll drink, Coke Zero and Pepsi Zero. And they gave me a free one day. I got a little coupon, said, try a free Pepsi Zero. I was like, all right, I'll try one. And I'm like, now I have to go out of my way because my grocery store doesn't sell them. It only sells Coke Zero. So I got to go all the way out of my way to Walmart to find Pepsi Zero.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, just don't pay too much for it. You might. They're really similar in flavor, to be honest. But anyways, we're here to talk about criminal, not Pepsi products. This was a good book, I gotta say. I can understand why this is your favorite book, Skip. But I'm going to be enjoying talking to you at the end because I'm not sure I appreciated the ending as much as I should.
Very good, very good. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm needing some additional perspectives, hopefully, to help solidify that and make me feel stronger about it.
Ask and you shall receive.
There you go. I mean, Breen just said he'll take care of that for you, so I'm going to step out of the way when that part comes, and I'll let Breen.
Oh no, you're going to be in on it too, because this is your favorite book by Ed Brubaker, so you're going to have to you're on the hook here.
See, Breen, I can't even throw you out under the bus without getting dragged under it too. So
when you
we have to get to that before I do the ultimate fade out.
Yeah. We will make sure that we don't take too long getting there. Ready to begin when you gentlemen are.
Yeah, I mean, we only got 4 issues to cover here, and without Nalo, which, by the way, you guys may have noticed in the audience that Nalo's not here. He's out on a nice lake house, living the DC life, I guess. Isn't it? They have the nice house on a lake. I guess he's living.
Yeah, it is DC. Yeah, good little Tynan reference.
Yeah, so is my chat broken, or do we have anybody here yet?
I don't know. Do we have anybody here yet? Did you promote it, Breen? Because
apparently not very well.
All your fans need to be brought over here.
It kind of puts it all in perspective, doesn't
it? So I forgot to send out the tweet actually that the show was going. This is one of those things. I put this up like 2 weeks ago that we were streaming, so everyone else probably just closed it out. You know, like I don't just leave stuff like that up on my YouTubes. But before we get this, because we got some time to kill, has anyone been reading any other similar books? I know, like for me, I've been wanting to find some other noir, like more criminal style books now that Ed Brubaker's hooked me on. Is there anything out there currently that's going to scratch that Brubaker itch that either of you are aware of?
Stray Dogs.
Stray Dogs, you think that's feels like a criminal style book?
I mean, nothing feels like criminal.
No, that's
something that like Nalo and I like talk about at least a few times a week, as he also like, you know, is constantly in search of something that can scratch that particular itch. So no, I can't say that Stray Dogs will exactly scratch that itch, but it is a noir book. It is crime related. So as cute as the characters are and whatnot, they very much are in situations where things like memory and, you know, flashing scenes of, you know, pieces of, you know, crime scenes and stuff like that, like appear, graves. So like it's, you know, and they're unmarked and who's in there, who's not. So all of those things do pop up. It's just packaged in a, you know, in a very cute package, but there is also some, I was going to say adult dog language. There's also some language in there too. So it's not so squeaky. It's not so squeaky clean. Tony Fleeks, who's known for writing My Little Pony, he definitely didn't bring all of that innocence over to this book.
Well, I got a nice little surprise in the mail. Well, I wasn't surprised. I actually was surprised that it came today. I was expecting it Friday, but my criminal collection is now complete. I got Criminal Deluxe hardcover volume 2. I already had 1 and 3.
Oh, nice.
So I now have all 3 of the deluxe hardcovers. I ordered it here off of In Stock Trades. And I got a couple other books too. I'm going to do an unboxing tomorrow. I think I might do like a comic haul video, maybe get an In-N-Out Burger and do some old school nostalgia. But this is one of the books I got. I'm so happy I got all 3 of them now. Plus I got the Cruel Summer book. So am I missing? Is there any other criminal books out there that aren't? I think that's it, right? If you have those 4, you have the entire criminal series.
Because you said you have all 3 of the hardcovers, and then what was the 4th book you said you had?
The Cruel Summer.
Oh, the Cruel Summer. Yeah. So if you have all those, yeah, then that's everything in the criminal series, because the 10th anniversary edition is inside of one of the deluxe hardcovers, and what you call it is also in there. My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. So yeah, if you've got those, you've got all of them. Breen, am I missing anything?
Well, I'm actually missing one of them, because I have the paperbacks of 4 of them,
mm-hmm.
and a fifth one in floppy form. I don't have the sixth one yet.
Okay.
And I haven't done the research to figure out which one I haven't. So one of these times, I'm going to have to go out and get the book to read it for the first time.
Oh.
Nice.
So
that's good. That leaves, well, at least you haven't consumed it all. It's the one regret that I have, and I think this is also partly why I don't scarf my Brubaker and Phillips meals, so to speak. I like my little comic book. I don't want to call it an insecurity, but it's like if it's like a mental block or like a little FOMO thing, it's I always regret, like when I find something I love, I chew it slowly and I savor the flavor because I don't like the idea of living in a world where I can't just go read a Brubaker and Phillips book that I've never read before that has to do with the criminal line. So
I'm the same way with Ash's videos.
You can't imagine living in a world where you can't just go to YouTube and just watch a brand new In-N-Out Burger video. Yes. Right.
Wow. I just released a video yesterday. Was it yesterday or day
before? You released like 2 within the last few days.
I haven't savored that flavor yet.
Well, they're about indie books, so you probably wouldn't be interested.
I'd hate
it. So yeah, no, the good thing about losing your memory, like I am though, is like I can read these all for the first time again. I already forgot what happened on all the previous criminal books. So, so
guess that works in your favor.
I guess, yeah. I feel like Memento. That feels like my life.
I'd laugh, but that hit very close to home.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, it was the same thing with, well, I don't want to say the same thing with this one, but I feel like I remember what happened in, but honestly, this has probably been the one that it's been the longest since I've read, because this was the third Brubaker book that I read, third or fourth. I read like the first trade and a half or the first 2 trades of Fattel before I read this one. And I had read all of Criminal 2019 because I was buying that in floppies. That was like my introduction to the Criminal series. So it'd been probably the longest since I had read this, because I read Cruel Summer when it came out in the hardcover. So it was nice going back through, and like I remember how this book made me feel, but to re-experience the exact reasons of why it left me feeling the way I feel about it was pretty cool. And I didn't realize how much I had forgotten about some of the details. So it's been a nice journey going back through this one.
This is a very cool book to read because it has the same feel as Criminal. Like, it has that same noir style that Brubaker writes so well and Sean Phillips illustrates so well. But it wasn't like a criminal story. Like, the main characters, they're in over their heads. They're in perhaps a story that's about crime, but they're not criminals, and so it's kind of interesting to see that he's able to stretch out from under that whatever you call it, the pigeonholing, I guess, that he can do other things. I really like this. I love the references, the whole movie industry, and I feel like there was so many so much symbolism and allegory to other things in life that I don't know if allegory is the right way, maybe metaphor. But we'll get into that, I suppose. Any final thoughts before we get into the synopsis of the book?
Breen, anything?
Let's do it.
Now, I noticed they got Breen on the cover of this book. This is back when his drinking days.
Actually, that would be inaccurate, sir. That would be a beer can.
Oh.
With a bunch of them laying around me.
That does look. I think I gotta say, Gil reminds me a lot of Breen. Some of the pictures that Sean draws him in, I'm like, that looks like Eric.
Right.
Got to get yourself a tie like that, Eric, and you can cosplay as Gil.
Definitely, I can see that being the case.
Get yourself a liquor bottle, but just fill it up with some Coke Zero.
See? There we go. It's a little darker than bourbon, but could pass it off.
Just add a little water to it.
Yeah, dilute it a little.
I'm sure it'll taste great.
But what if I want to be a method cosplayer?
Then you're done for.
Yep.
Done. All right. So here we go. This is Act 3 of The Fade Out. This is one of the largest stories that Brubaker has done in his indie world. For those of you that have not been reading this, shame on you. You're missing out. And you're going to get spoiled of a good story. However, you can't 100% spoil a Brubaker book because so much of the joy of this book is just in the reading it. The dialogue and the narration, just his use of words and the combining illustration and storytelling of Sean Phillips is just it sounds cheesy to say, but it's like magical. Like it just goes together so well. Rarely have I seen an writer-artist team feel like it's the same guy, it's like two separates, be so connected in what they're doing. Usually you can only get that out of like a singular writer-artist who, obviously is in his own head, so he knows exactly how to draw the scenes that he wants to write. These two seem like they're sharing one brain. This is the third volume. They're each 4 issues, so it was a total of 12 issues if you had bought them in the floppies. And here's our cast of characters. I wish they would do this on all their books, to be honest. So you could go through and remember some of these characters' names, but maybe I'm just asking for too much. And we start off on Act 1, or Chapter 1 of Act 3 is Living in a Memory.
Indeed, Living in a Memory. The perfect title. I really enjoy how like the titles, if you make a habit if you haven't read this book yet, or when you reread it next time, to all the people joining us live and also on the VOD, read the title, and then when you're done with the that issue, go back and read the title again. It really does kind of bring things full circle. But to jump into it, we're picking up with Charlie. He is heading back to his house that he had purchased, and we find out, I don't think we had found this out up until this point, but Charlie had been married before. We get to meet his wife. He had gone back just to grab his old chest from when he was in the U.S. military, and we find out a little bit more about how he, the old school term shell-shocked. He was shell-shocked when he came back. We find out that his wife, whose name is Rebecca, had moved on. She is living with the man now, but it is the house that Charlie had purchased, and it seems like they've made amends. They are, at a place of understanding. The main thing that Charlie needed to go back and get was his old military, at least I believe it was his military-issued handgun. From the character of Charlie, doesn't seem like that'd be something that he would just have unless it was really given to him. And then this is also the point where we find out, or where actually both of them find out, that they've been working on the 2 parts together. We had left off where Charlie had found a letter that he believed Gil had typed, and it was a bit of a ransom letter. So Gil kind of comes clean on how he's been working an angle of trying to make them believe that someone was blackmailing him, or at least just that to let them know, to let the studio heads know, Al Camp, and especially gosh, I'm forgetting the guy's name. I think it's Dorsby or Drumsby or something. But to let them know. Okay, thank you. To let them know that someone knows about the activity that happened, and that Val's murder wasn't just a suicide. And then Charlie lets Gil know that he's been doing a little bit of investigation on his own, trying to follow the lead of the Drake Miller character. We get a little bit more backstory about Charlie and Gil and how their relationship started off sweet, and then why it turned sour, so harshly. We also find out that there's a little bit of a swinger angle going on. Gil and his wife Melba, they kind of had like a little bit of like a Will Smith, Jada Pinkett, like open relationship type thing. So Gil had been with other women, and Melba, I guess, kind of signed off on it. And in this particular case, since Charlie was so shell shocked, they were just trying to pump some life back into him because his wife had left him prior to going into the military, and Melba offered a little free love to Charlie, and Gil happened to witness that, as they both believed he was passed out drunk on the couch, but he was not. And then they pretty much tried to bring their two plans together because there's no turning back now. So they say that they're going to press harder a little bit on Brodsky, the fixer, aka the studio security, and see if they can get any further information from his offices to find out the best way to proceed. And that is where book one ends. I'm gonna go to Breen first. Breen, what are some of your thoughts on this particular chapter?
Well, I think when you were talking about Melba and Charlie, I think there was more to it than that. I mean, but that might be because I've read the rest of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of got the feeling that there was more to it than just her trying to wake him up. Because I said you notice when Gil wakes up and sees him, they made a point to say that he's not happy about it. I mean, I don't care how open your relationship is, you don't want your best friend balling your wife.
Definitely.
Certainly not in front of you. Like that scene was pretty, like, I wasn't really gratuitous, but I mean, it was just the way that it happens. I'm getting to it here in a second. Yeah, here we go. It's on two different pages. The scene, they're in the kitchen or somewhere, and he's passed out on the couch. And so when you get to this next part where he starts opening his eyes, it's right in front of his face. And it says right here, maybe Gil wouldn't have cared if he hadn't woken up. But Jesus, that's a messed up scene. This was a really messed up scene. Sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to distract you.
No, you're fine. And the rest of the issue is basically setting up what's to come, where the Brodsky's out trying to find what someone has on him. They're torching files, and it basically ends with Charlie. I love the line where Gil says, "I don't care." He said, "We can't win." He goes, "I don't care if we win. I just want them to lose."
Yeah.
And that's when Charlie says, "Yeah, I'm in." So I thought that was a really good ending for that issue.
One of the things
Absolutely.
I love about these two characters is they both, I don't know if I would say that they're men of principle, but they have principles that they just won't tolerate beyond. Like, they have their lines and they're like, nope, we're not, and even Charlie is like, dude, Gil, you're fucking crazy. And then Gil presents his case like, dude, like what Eric just said, I don't care if we win, they have to lose. And then Charlie's like, yep, I guess you're, it's like they both have their degree of, they're not going to stand for this. And in a way that's almost heroic, I think, because so many other people, myself included, if I were in their shoes, I probably would just be like, fuck, just turn aside, be like, don't get messed up into this. It's, life sucks, but what am I going to do? But the fact that these guys do something, even though it's stupid, even though there's times you're reading the story, you're like, no, what are you doing? You're going to get caught. You're going to, but they're doing something. And they're standing up to some really bad shit. And even in their stupidity, even in the times where Charlie is like, I like Charlie a lot. He's a character I identify quite a bit with. I like his personality. I like his worldview. And then that scene, I'm like, because, infidelity is just something that completely rubs me wrong. Like, you don't do that. And he's doing that to his best friend, and I was like, damn you, Charlie. Fucking why? But then I almost get past it because I admire the fact that he's going to still do the right thing. He's a flawed person. He's he's got his own skeletons, and that's some of the realism that Brubaker breathes into these characters' lives, because these aren't perfect people by any means, but they're characters at least you could admire because they're the things that they do. Do the things that they do is something that you can appreciate, hopefully, and admire and make you care about them even beyond their flaws.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I can see what you're saying there, and that may have been, how Brubaker and Phillips, especially Brubaker, constructed the characters from the foundation of what their principles are, and then built on top from there. If that was the case, it was firm foundation, because the characters are so distinct and defined, and because, especially by now, though I felt like it was pretty solidified earlier on, because they have such a strong sense of personality within the book, their dynamic works. Out the gate, to me, their dynamic was strong. It worked. And it's nice that we were able to go back in this issue and find out how they got to where they were. That backstory added to the story, but I was already convinced enough of these characters and how honest they felt, dare I say real, but how honest they felt, to where I had already believed that. I believed, Gil would be on this, road to destruction, so to speak. I believe that Charlie would be on a similar road, but just for slightly different reasons. They both had their own reasons. And, for them to intersect on this collision course in the way that they are, they, it was like at that point, they couldn't continue to operate alone. And, even though it wasn't a good idea for them to try to do it together either. I don't know who else can write stuff like so convincing and compelling, man. I don't like Brubaker and Phillips, and then the art just, like, Ash, like you said, it's almost like as if one person did it, but for them to kind of come to the conclusions that they did, and even fight over a little bit. How honest was it that, like, they were both trying to get over their points on each other? We should do it this way because, no, that's stupid. We should do it this way because, and no one's way was really better than the others. It's just that Gil caved in because he just wants to like, for someone to pay so bad that he was like, to hell with how they pay. You want them to pay, I want them to pay. All right, I'm down to try your way. Even that was just like, just really like smart choices, when constructing together such a story. So, and it looks like we have a new challenger has arrived. Nalo, are you there?
Hey everybody, apologies for my tardiness.
Hey, he came in like Spider-Man in Civil War. Hi, everybody. Man, I'm glad you were able to join us from out there. You were somewhere out in the sticks, but I guess wherever you relocated, it put you in a spot where you can come and be an accomplice in this CriminalCast. So I'm happy that you were able to make it. Being that we're kind of wrapping up, so not a bad time for you to have joined us. Was there any thoughts that you wanted to give on this particular chapter before we move on?
Sure. You guys covered a lot of great stuff. I was listening already. I was just curious if anyone had any thoughts of like parallels between Val and Charlie both kind of having like marriages that seem so like separated from like the core of this book and their career paths. Or ex-marriages, rather.
Yeah, I did too. That was something I had only like briefly made the connection. Thank you for like putting it kind of front and center like this. But I think it speaks to kind of like the whole tortured soul angle that they have. Both of them seem pretty similar in the sense that like They are in the careers that they want to be in. They're passionate about the work that they do. Both of them, like in the scheme of all of these characters, feel like I don't want to say the most genuine, but as far as like people who understand that this is all a show, you know, this Hollywood thing, you know, I really felt it from them, because when they had the opportunity to get away, they were far happier away from it all than they were there amongst it all. So I can see, you know, like the parallels and in both ways, you know, kind of how their marriages didn't work out, where I think Charlie is a little bit of a self-saboteur in a way, where Armando was kind of that in their relationship, though Maya kind of had her own, you know, her being more interested in being successful necessarily than making a marriage with you know, with like kind of a raging alcoholic musician, who we all know how those were back then. I feel like they might have been even wilder back than they were in modern day. But you know, them playing those roles within their relationship in a way kind of just made them perfect for each other. Here, Charlie's the fuck up. She's, you know, kind of the motivated one who attracts fuck ups. Bam, there you go. Now you got these two, you know, kind of together.
Yeah, Charlie's wife, you know, wasn't standing in the way of his career. Armando was standing in the way of, you know, Maya's. So
yeah,
the fucked up way that, you know, how Hollywood worked in those days. So I didn't really get that. Other than that, there was a good situation for two people to maybe use each other for a while.
Makes me wonder where Ed Brubaker comes from, because is there any wholesome relationships in any of these stories? Is anyone happy together?
Nah, man.
Like every relationship is like busted. Wow. It's like just no two people like, hey, yeah, we're actually just happy together. Nope. Someone's cheating on someone else, or they're wanting to murder someone, or I don't know.
That's noir, baby.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's just it. Like, it's just like, I'm just
that's the genre.
Is there just one person on the side that maybe, yeah. And I guess maybe maybe that's the lure. Maybe you're supposed to hope for that and never get it.
Yeah, Brubaker's probably married to his childhood sweetheart.
Probably.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of everything he's ever written.
Yep, from middle school. Like he bakes, you know. Like they're probably great. But no, baby, this is noir. Like this is where hearts go to break. So, you know, that's how these
but
are.
I'm talking about even like side characters, right? Like maybe you could have your hearts breaking because you see like this side character, they went off and had a nice life, and the main characters have to be miserable. I don't know. It just strikes me that I'm like, oh, all the books they're all like every single character has some dysfunctional aspect of the relationship.
I mean, when I think about the movies, like watching, like, and not even just old noir movies, modern day noir movies too, but especially, you know, like going back and like, you know, watching the old ones and such, that's kind of like, it was pretty rare. Like, and if someone had a good relationship, it was like the person letting the woman go because if they were together, it would be strife because people would be after them. So he lets her go, and then she can go to some other love. And like, and even then, like, okay, she's going on to be in like a better relationship, but like it's still not a happy ending. At best, it's bittersweet. That's just kind of like, I can't remember many noir stories, like movies, whatever, where things kind of did go like that.
Yeah. Yep, that's me being naive, I guess. So we move on to issue 10, the next chapter?
I am completely down with that. Nalo, did you want to head that thing, or did you want me to keep rolling with it?
If you can keep rolling, that works for me, and I'll have more to say this issue as well.
Yeah, he's on the
I'm
phone
wrong.
with James Tynan as Tynan's writing his life story.
Because I told you I was at a nice house on a lake.
I
It's
know.
a writing retreat for up and coming writers being recruited.
Is that right? I got a bigger feeling that you're like talking to James Tynan about how this Airbnb is not exactly what he said it was, but that's all good. Again, since I kind of had made mention of going back and like kind of wrapping the book up by looking at the title again, the chapter number 1 in Act 3 was living in a memory. So of course, us getting a lot about Charlie and Gil's backstory as well lends to some of the good times before things went so bad. Chapter 2 in Act 3 is called Where Angels Fear to Tread. And this one we start off with Dottie, kind of doing her normal things, listening to the tabloid people and the media people, listening to them blab so she can kind of set things up and get pictures and whatnot and scenario set up for her studio stars. She runs into Charlie. He's all taped up looking like the Invisible Man, and she is like, what the hell is going on? He's trying to enter Brodsky's office to execute the plans that he and Gil had ultimately come up with together. And since Dottie sees him, he wants to come clean and kind of let her know all of what was going on. Then we get a little bit of the backstory of, or we jump back in time, not too far back. Charlie and Gil going back and forth on kind of how they were going to approach Brodsky in his office. Charlie gets a little bit more of a clearer vision of what had happened that night, and this character, Drake Miller, is starting to kind of fall into place a little bit more within Charlie's own broken memory. Gil executes his side of the plan, which is to distract Brodsky to get him out of the office. So he lets Brodsky know that he has a little bit of proof of what Old Man Camp had been up to, and so that gets Brodsky all stirred up once he knows that there is solid proof out there. We go over to a wrap party for the film that they were shooting, and Charlie finally interacts with Maya again for the first time in a while. Seems like he had been avoiding her, and she lets him know that he feels that. And right as he was going to have to try to scramble for reasons why, the director of the film comes up and just punches Charlie right in the kisser, so to speak. And I guess he's all mad that Charlie ultimately didn't do the rewrites for the film that they were shooting. So Charlie got saved by getting busted in the chops, which for someone who's such a punching bag in this book, it didn't seem like he was too broken up about it. Pardon the pun. Anyhow, as he's kind of licking his wounds, Charlie Rath comes in there and checks on him, as they're buddies. And Charlie gets a little bit of a memory, or so he believes, that Rath was definitely there that night, and he's someone that Charlie shouldn't shake down, but his emotions get the best of him in the moment. So he tries to shake Charlie Rath down a little bit, and Rath sticks it to him and lets him know, like, hey, you're maybe I'll let this one slide because you got a crack on the jaw, but your memory's all messed up, buddy. You need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, essentially. And then kind of darts out the room. That's when Charlie wraps himself up like the Invisible Man, and then he he starts the whole Brodsky thing, looking back, coming up with nothing, and then ultimately tilts his head back and sees that there's a file on Drake Miller within Brodsky's desk. And as he's looking at the pictures, another piece of the puzzle falls into play. It wasn't just Drake Miller there along with Val and Charlie Rath, but it was also the Tyler Graves, the young star. He was a part of it as well. And the only other picture besides that picture that night that was in Drake Miller's file that Brodsky had was another picture of Val when she was younger. She was part of the whole teensy group with Flapjack, the black trumpet player dude, and all those that used to film their little kiddie show up in the ranch. And she went by Jenny Summers at that time. So as he's relaying all this stuff to Dottie, letting her know, why she found him coming out of Brodsky's office, she lets him know, like, hey, your suspicions are correct. That Drake Miller guy, studio plant, FBI. You need to leave this alone, Charlie. Have nothing to do with it. You can't go up against the FBI. You can't go up against studio heads. Just please drop it. But like it says, she knows that Charlie won't. And sure enough, he goes back to the apartment to execute the next part of he and Gil's plan. So, Ash, what'd you think about Chapter 2 of Act 3?
It's hard to really nail this one down. Some of the things that stand out in my mind are just how much I really like Dottie's character. Maybe that's just me. And the whole time they've been kind of hinting at, like, they've been putting her and Charlie together in different scenes. And then earlier in the book, there were some pretty kind of like lighthearted, borderline comedy scenes where one doesn't think the other's interested in each other, and you're just like, oh, and you're like, and you kind of just feel like, oh, this is a trope, like they're gonna be together. And then so this issue, he's like confiding in her, like it's like the only person he can trust besides Gil. And I'm just like, this is the woman like you need to be with. Like as a reader, I'm like, Charlie, like get your head out of these stupid movie starlets and your best friend's wife and doing all these, like, here's this available woman who clearly likes you. She's smart. She's not caught up in the Hollywood. Like as the audience, you're like, this is where you should go. But of course, because it's what we talked about earlier, but
kind of like your point,
you can't go. You can't go this route. So I also like some of the red herrings that this book is setting up, because Charlie's mind is not clear. He's having these fuzzy memories, and they're illustrated here occasionally where this art style where it's kind of blurry, and these are these flashbacks that he's barely remembering because he was in a drunken stupor these whole times, because that's one of his problems, is he's constantly drunk. And so he can't really remember what's going on. And then also his mind seems to be playing tricks on him, because here he confronts Wrath about like, oh yeah, you were with Val that night, blah, blah, blah. But he realized, Wrath confronts him and he starts doubting himself because, Wrath really sticks to his guns. Is why would I be there? And this story doesn't make sense. And you start to see, based on actual photo evidence, that Wrath wasn't there. And so now he can't even trust his own memory, which just adds sort of fuel to the fire, this bonfire that this whole mystery is. And you're like, what is going on? And that's one of the things that really struck me about this issue, is that it felt like this was the issue that, to parallel like a stage magician, is a lot of the smoke and mirrors and being like, look over here, and before Ed really gets to where he's going. And so I was confused, but I felt like it was a deliberate, like I was meant to be not understanding what was happening here.
Absolutely. Nalo.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you added, Ash, but when I had read this series, it was all together, and this is one of my favorite issues. Probably because it's like as close to the climax as you can really get, or just about. And like Ash, you were saying, there's a lot of red herrings, so it's like, basically the issue before, stuff starts to hit the fan. And for me as a reader, I like that you started, for me, I like the mystery part of this book, like some of the most, like who is this, federal agent on the movie set, and the fact that you finally start to get some insight and like the amount of like layers to the characters, where like Dottie has actually been playing Charlie in the sense that she knows more than him and is trying to protect him. So she has her like fingers in, how the studio operates, and the symbolism of like Charlie walking around as this invisible man. I think there's like a lot to unpack there. So like, even if Breen, if in older movies where what this like kind of symbolizes when people are wrapping their face. And yeah, I just love this issue because especially if I was getting it month to month, I can just imagine not being able to wait to get the next one. So those are kind of my high level thoughts on this one.
Absolutely. And Mr. Breen.
That's a good point about the feeling invisible, and the way they set it up to where he was dressed as a character from a previous movie, but that does kind of make sense that he's there, but Yeah, in some ways he's not. So it's because it's like whether it's taking him forever to fit all the pieces together, or that he's just not really that significant when it all comes down, as we may or may not find out in an issue or two.
And part of his invisibility is actually real, not just symbolic, because the character that he's not just dressed as a movie character, he's is an actor who got his face injured. I was in a car accident or something. So he's been walking around, this guy Morty, been walking around with the face garb. So when he walks around like this, people mistake him for Morty, as you can see in this scene here. Where
You talking about Tyler?
Charlie?
No, well, it said Night Morty, but the guy that got his face messed up was a couple guys got their face messed up. You had Tyler Graves in the accident, and then the musician. But who's Morty?
So Morty was the guy because remember Charlie Rath was doing that film where he had to be all wrapped up, but he complained about it. He didn't want to be like wrapped up all the time.
Okay, so they got
Morty to be a stand-in for Charlie Rath, so he didn't have to do all of the stuff and being wrapped up all the time.
Earl.
Earl. Thank you. Sorry, not Charlie Rath. He's Charlie Earl Rath. Thank you.
Yeah, it's about all I can contribute to this, so I figure I might as well.
I was just throwing that in there as like he literally does get to walk around invisible, because the studio, when they see him like that, they don't see Charlie. They see, in this case, they see Morty.
That's a good point.
So he really is an invisible man, so to speak.
But he is literally, in the sense that people mistake him, but also in the sense that, like, as Dottie points out, like, you're invisible to this story, and you should continue to be invisible.
Right.
And
that's what I was trying to say.
and he, at the end of the issue, at some point, he's like, I'm taking off the mask. I'm taking off my invisibility powers. I'm going to be seen. And I think he even says in this that it was like one of the first mistakes of many he was about to make, or something to that effect.
He makes a lot of mistakes. Now, you said that Dottie was playing him. Did you really think that she's playing him?
Not playing him, but like it kind of like reveals that she's not as naive as she appears. She's like more knowledgeable about the studio operations, and she's actually in a power position to protect him. She's not actually in need of protection herself, so she's not like playing him, but it's just like she wasn't exactly what she seemed in the issues previous.
Yeah, she was playing coy. She was playing coy. She's really playing everybody, like, because she's not letting everybody know, like how much she actually knows, how well connected she actually is, and what her true influence is. And so yeah.
Because my takeaway when I read this is like she's like the smartest person in the room. Like she's like the only one that knows a bit of everything.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah. Like in this issue, you kind of get, like, in the past, you kind of maybe looked at her as a bit more naive, like, oh, little Dottie. And here you get the sense that no, she's kind of like has her finger in the pulse of every aspect of the studio.
Yeah, she may not have the clout to get into these fancy parties that she may want to go to, like as we saw earlier in the series, but yeah, she definitely knows what's going on, and probably at some point you can see her maybe meeting her end years from now after blackmailing the wrong person.
Fade out to Dottie story.
You're probably pretty on the mark, because Skip said they had a sequel in mind, and
there we go. All right. Well, any other final things about that issue?
I think we're ready to hit number 11.
Yeah, I think most of what I have to say is once we are able to talk about every issue.
Sure, no problem.
And on that note, again, that was Where Angels Fear to Tread. Moving on to Chapter 3 of Act 3, or number 11 in the whole of the series. Anyone Else But Me. So in this one, we get a little bit more of the backstory of Charlie and Val, and how they, kind of came to form their relationship. finding her out and like passed out and drunk, kind of on one of the old beach house, places where she can kind of be alone, and her coming clean on what happened to the kids, like while they were up there at that ranch filming the that Christmas show. I think they were called the Teensies. Was that the name of the kids group? I believe the Teensies. So they had been sexually abused and abused in other ways as well, and then she also let him know about how her mother had gotten pregnant. So the person who needs to succeed, that responsibility got pushed on her as a young child, and ultimately how it led to her getting all messed up. Charlie and Gil continue to push their plans further with the newer information that they've gotten, and they've pretty much decided that they're going to try to go up to Al Camp, since he's the most vulnerable, yet also has a good amount of knowledge, since he's old and senile. Get him drunk, get him out the house, get him talking, possibly even record him, and then use that as additional leverage against Brodsky, or at that point, whoever they wanted to. And as they make their way into the house, which has a low staff because he's older and it's so far out of town, and the studio doesn't have quite as much money as they used to have anymore anyway, more of Charlie's memory in relation to Drake Miller begins to come into effect even more. Some of the slight things that Drake Miller had said, and also known about Charlie, knowing what movie he got nominated for an Oscar for writing so far back, saying he's keeping an eye on Charlie. Well, Charlie's work anyway, all of those things start to kind of
just to add one thing, Skip, I think it's some of the exact same dialogue of when he confronted Charlie in the bathroom, or in an earlier issue.
Yes, yep, good thing to point out. So yeah, some of the exact same dialogue. And then also the soft conversation, like the whispered conversation that was had when Val came upon the conversation that Drake Miller was having with Charlie and kind of ushered him out the room. Something to the effect of like, hey, I told you to leave him alone. Because at this point, Charlie's starting to think that Drake Miller was even pressuring Val with the information that he had, trying to dig deeper down the rabbit hole and get the commies, or really, any crimes that have been committed that are on a large scale. And as they go through the rooms in the house, Gil lets Charlie know that he's cleared out all the other rooms. They check the film room. Most of the things are gone except for the Christmas Carol film with the Teensies. That's the only film canister that was left of note. And then when they go to check one other room, they actually find Al Camp, old man Al Camp, the old studio head in there, drowned in the bathtub. And they knew they started to firmly believe it was an inside job, because when they were outside trying to press in through the woods, a car had passed them and it didn't stop. It had just kept going past. And right as they make that discovery, it looks like there was a man left back. Charlie pulls the gun, fires around. The guy ducks, it misses him. They're trying to make a great escape out the house and through the woods to, well, they're not going to grandmother's house anymore. They're trying to get to the car and get the hell out of Dodge. The guy that seemed to have been one of Brodsky's guys that stayed back fires a few rounds off. They both make it into the car, and as Charlie is wrapping up his inner dialogue and starts to talk to Gil, he realizes Gil is not responsive, turns and looks to the right, and Gil is hemorrhaging blood, got blood coming out of his mouth, and he looks dead as a doorknob. Oh, Eric Breen.
Wow, where to start with this? It's like something out of a Hollywood movie. I said you go into the house, gonna talk to the guy, he's dead. Oh no, there's a gunman, run! And then they think they've gotten away, but no. So it's like, it's just, what a perfect set up to the penultimate chapter. When I gotta be honest, I said even with all the blood and everything, when I first read this, I thought, they probably get him to the hospital. I said, and then because I said it's like You're not going to kill him off before the final act, are they? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I love this issue. It's just the flashback with Drake, getting to the guy's house, finding the old man in the bathtub, thinking they got away, and realizing that Gil had been shot. I mean, it's just and like I said, a little bit of backstory to you realize that when you see what's her name, Val. The backstory with how the time he found her passed out, it's like kind of makes you think, okay, I guess there's like a 1% chance that maybe she did kill herself, despite how they found her or how he found her. So, I don't know. It's a lot happened in this issue, and I said, reading these once a month, it was like, I could not wait for the next issue to see how it all wrapped up.
Yeah, this issue really, you touched on something important about Val, because we don't really see much of her except for the beginning of the story, and then till now we see this flashback, and he's sent out by Dottie, to look after this girl, and he's just like, he's just living the Hollywood dream. He's like, I'm on the beach of Malibu, and it's all, and then he finally gets to her, and there's like a telling scene here, and he's like, but then I saw her, the state she was in, and all those kinds of thoughts, the way men always think. They just disappeared. All right, let's get you up. And it's like, he's just wants to take care of her. He's not having the lurid thoughts of just, having a bump and grind. He cares about this girl, and she's obviously has, a haunted life. And we've seen through this book that just because you're living the life of a movie star doesn't mean you're living the life of a movie star. And Hollywood's pretty fucked up. And then as we get to see later on, then the story hints on things about how you kind of have to make deals and pay for things in different ways. And I kind of get the feeling that her relationship with certain other characters that we'll get into more, she probably had to do a lot of traumatizing things that she didn't like. And, you can just see, like, this is where Sean Phillips is so great. Like in scenes like this, where there's no dialogue, there's no narration, but you can see the look on her face that she's tormented. And that's such great storytelling that I as a reader know that this means something. And I can rely on that. I'm not just reading into it because the artist can't draw. And I'm just like, well, you don't know. Maybe they're just aren't good at expressions. I can rely on Sean Phillips as delivering exactly what needs to be delivered. And, we have like, it's kind of, it makes us feel something too, because the relationship is kind of pure. Like he doesn't, Charlie's a good guy. He's not taking advantage of her. They sleep together and they talk about, we slept with our clothes on, just holding each other, like little kids trying to sleep through a thunderstorm. So he doesn't try to take advantage of her either. And, they have like kind of a semi-wholesome relationship. And as things go on, it's the setup, it's the foundational stuff that Brubaker puts in his books like this that really make you care when other scenes happen. And you're like, oh, damn it. So that's how I thought about this book. This book was a lot of making me care.
Nalo?
Yeah, I think thanks guys for covering so much from this issue. So I'll try to add something that hasn't been brought up. What I like the most from this issue that hasn't been spoken about yet is how, Gil's fate is kind of his own becoming. And we don't really get many answers in this issue per se, but at least when I first read it, I got the impression that, the studio's doing a cleanup job because they found out someone has dirt on them. And the very person who has dirt on them is, who is our protagonist and what they're up to. And it just kind of shows how maybe if they even listened to Dottie or took a few steps back and, they would maybe even be able to get the evidence. But because of their reckless actions, all the evidence is gone. The only thing left is the Crazy Kids Christmas Carol and 1928 Camp Productions film with starring Flapjack, and they're kind of left with nothing, only lead in their gut. So it's kind of just shows how much they messed up.
Yeah, they did mess up, and it's Gil. Gil is, you're right. He's sort of like the bull in the china shop, and he's just out of control. And
I think it's just the visual scene where like the evidence is gone, and the main culprit has been murdered.
Oh,
and they're
right.
just like, well, we like messed up so much, like we like lost the whole story. Like we can't prove any level of this anymore because we triggered a cleanup.
Right. Okay, yeah, good point. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's something I actually, I hadn't considered it from that angle. That if Gil hadn't gone off half cocked like he did in the beginning and send that ransom letter, no, they wouldn't have had any reason.
Ransom. He doubled it recently, or
whatever. Right. But if
he's poking them, making them so paranoid that they kill Camp potentially. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're like so paranoid that they burnt everything. They're killing people. They're like, holy shit, some guy is onto us. We gotta end it.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it from that angle. That's cool. One has to wonder, though, if Gil hadn't done that, however, would they have gotten this far?
Well, yeah.
Because the reason he did that was to see, are they in on it? Like, is anyone going to react? Because remember, his ransom wasn't real. It was just more of like fishing the waters.
I guess my takeaway is in the issue before they show that the parallel that Charlie and Gil are debating on whose plan would be better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the parallel of both of their opinions on liquor. One is like, because they think it makes them a genius, the other one's because they think they make it forget. And it's a binary option. As the reader, you're picking between one or the other. But in reality, they might be both really off the mark, and both plans are wrong, and both views of liquor are wrong.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Just coming up at the moment. That's what I took from this issue, but maybe we can skip. Did you want to add more to this issue other than the summary? Or?
Where angels fear to tread, and I really took the overall theme, as like knowing the depths, and even if you don't know before you get there, not soon after, like you start to hear the stories and you see different things happening and you start to question things, and it's the loss of innocence. Innocence comes to this place, and there's all these tangled webs that have been woven over this time, and how deep they go down the rabbit hole, no one really knows. But you start to get enough of an idea that it's not really a good idea to get close enough to find out. And ultimately it gets around to like the innocent people, the angels, they fear to tread in these places and spaces that Charlie and Gil have found themselves in. But that's just the thing about Charlie and Gil. They ain't angels.
Good point. I like that. Analysis.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any final thoughts to wrap this one up before we drive her home, anyone?
Let's free the world.
Free the world. Let's free Willie. Let's do it right here. This is a whale of a book. I'm sorry. And so the last one, let me flip back over to that so I can just get the title of it. Tomorrow, When the World is Free. Nalo, always on point. Gil in that car finally stopped driving and just clutching his dead best friend. And that is a little bit of a flashback as it's muted colors. He wakes up next to Maya, goes outside and finds out that they're in the part of the of Hollywood that's like predominantly Mexican, so it's known as like the Mexican area of Hollywood, or Los Angeles, if you will. And he goes outside, sees the car is still there, gets a little closer, sees that Gil is still cold, and he's got him wrapped up over there, and Maya's just reminding him of how frantic he was last night when he called her and how afraid he was. Asked for a change of clothes, and still in a bit of a state of shock. She's so concerned and caring about Charlie, and Charlie is just so far into his mind and trauma and shock that you know, again, after not speaking for so long, she's beginning herself to feel invisible to Charlie, even going so far as to ask him, you know, don't you even see me at all? But as I said, he's just too deep in all of it. He's thinking about the deaths of Valerie. He's thinking about the death of, you know, his best friend Gil. He's thinking about even the death of Al Camp, and just comes to the conclusion, you know, that someone's got to pay. Someone's got to pay for all this death, and the person that he has on his mind is Drake Miller. So he goes to the Victory Street Studios, Victory Street Pictures, I believe is what it is. But he goes to that studio where the FBI plant posing as a producer, Drake Miller, was had told him that he was working. And when he gets there, he sees that they're scratching Drake Miller's name off of the window, goes inside and finds out that there's some guys in there working. They want to get Charlie's name, and Charlie recognizes one of them, another member of the FBI, an agent there. And that was the person that when Gil had told Charlie to give him up as the commie, so to get the heat off of him, that is the gentleman that was there that had him sign the confession letter, if you will. So he stops the guy from breaking Charlie's balls and kind of gives Charlie a little bit of info, saying, you know, like, yeah, maybe, you know, found out there's some commies also on Broadway. So he got shipped. Drake Miller got shipped back to the East Coast. But we've been hearing some rumblings about you, and it sounds like you might have had some things going on that got us concerned. Why don't you come down to the office and tell me a little bit about it? So Charlie's feeling sick about that, starting to put more things together in his mind, past, present. And as he's thinking about all those things, he realizes he hadn't thought past killing Drake Miller. Goes back to his office space and thinks that he might turn the gun on himself, but can't bring himself to do it. And as he's thinking about Melba, you know, with having to take care of the kids and living without Gil, and how it's best not to tell her what actually happened because it would just kick up more dust that wouldn't equate to justice or anything. He drives back over to Maya and finds Brodsky is there waiting for him. And he's like, all right, well, do what you got to do. Go ahead and kill me. And Brodsky lets him know he ain't there to kill him. He's there to actually help him out. And he's going to cover this up for him and do his job as a fixer that he always does, to really cover things up for the studio. We flash forward 6 weeks later. We see that Charlie is effectively living with Melba now, but sleeping on the couch, kind of helping her out with the kids a little bit. He started writing again himself, but he's writing mostly at night. I think that implies a little bit of something else. And she asks him, how long are you going to keep staying on the couch? He says he doesn't know. He's like, well, you need to start coming and sleeping with me. Otherwise, I'm going to take it personal. A little bit after, a few days after Gil's funeral, he does end up sleeping with her in both senses of the word. And just doesn't feel right to him. We got ourselves the debut of the movie Ojai that Charlie was writing on. At this point, for PR reasons, Tyler has proposed to Maya, and Maya is showing off that big hunking rock to all of the paparazzi. Charlie is talking to Dottie, and they're just talking, chopping it up about the whole scene. Dottie is on her job, still trying to stop things from getting screwed up to the level that Brodsky may have to intervene on. And as Charlie's looking down on everything, he gets into a conversation with Brodsky about what happened, and Brodsky lets him know, hey, we're both realists. If you want to know what happened, I'll let you know what happened, but not here. And they go and they end up having some drinks. And Brodsky lets him know, I don't exactly know what happened that night, but let me tell you what I think happened, and gives him the story, in a hypothetical packaging. And it was about Drake Miller going there to sniff out commies, but ultimately getting secrets and power over studio heads and actresses and actors. And when they can't pay up with money, they pay up with other favors. And ultimately getting to the point where he's trying to shake down Val, and Val might have just been the one that just didn't want to give it up. And in a fit of rage, Mr. Drake Miller might have just choked her out and killed her. And He couldn't call the FBI because he had just murdered someone, so he ends up calling Brodsky, and Brodsky does him a solid by helping him cover that up as well. And after Charlie hears it all, you know, he is talking about trying to learn to live with it, and you know, and Brodsky just tells him flat out, like, this is life. It's cold-blooded and calculated, and Christmas is going to come every year on schedule, and it's not going to skip a beat. This is the world that we live in. Charlie grabs the booze bottle, hits the street, thinking about how there's no justice, and he couldn't even get revenge in the place of justice. Nothing is settled for him. Everybody else settled all of their affairs except for him, whether it was through death or whether it was through getting shipped off someone else. And Charlie's just left with the grief of it all, thinking that, you know, maybe those planes that he heard in the beginning of the book actually did fly over LA after Pearl Harbor, and maybe he did actually bomb LA and burn this whole place to the ground just like he wants to. And maybe he's been living a bad dream, a life lived in hell. And as it says in the end of the book, he wants to scream, but he doesn't. And we fade to black. Mr. Eric Bree.
Okay, I don't think there was anything hypothetical about it. Obviously, Brodsky knew exactly what happened, and he knows that when he tells Charlie, Charlie knows exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something I wasn't clear on. Now, obviously, Val had an abortion.
Yeah.
That's why she felt so. Yeah, she was having trouble dealing with it. I mean, she wasn't laying on the ground when Charlie found her from morning sickness. She was just sick at what she'd done. Now I'm wondering, was the baby Drake's? Is that what that little flashback scene in that one panel was with that girl sitting on his lap? And did he go into a rage because she aborted the kid? And the rest of that part of the story might have been a bunch of BS. And is that why he flew into a rage and killed her? Because she, aborted their baby?
Well, the woman that was on his lap though wasn't Val.
You sure? I mean, I know the hair's dark, but it could have been the shading of the photo. I mean, the picture. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, something made him fly into a rage, and not getting information doesn't seem like that would be enough for a guy that probably fancied himself as this cool, calm, collected, FBI agent.
I'm willing to consider that theory, but I think doesn't Brodsky say that Brodsky's theory is that Drake just got too confused or too high on his own supply between being FBI and being a producer, and he was just thought he was king of the world?
Yeah, maybe he was living undercover. That was Brodsky's story. Was he was living undercover as this Hollywood producer, and he started to believe that the cover, like he was feeling like he was a Hollywood producer, except he was worse. He was a Hollywood producer who was also an FBI guy, and he had the power to ruin people from both sides. And so even the studio could put up...
but I don't know if that's enough for him to kill somebody without some motivation. Again, this is another one of those that always seems to be in a Brubaker story, that there's something that happens that you can, interpret in a number of different ways. We'll never know. I mean, how much, Brodsky was telling Charlie the truth, but did he even know everything?
Well, Breen, I really like where you're going with this, because let's say it's true, and I'll just say what I wanted to add about the title, The Fade Out. It's obviously, from the beginning, it's referencing to fading out from alcohol. You could see it cinematically. We fade to black, it fades out. But I can add a third perspective, which is, at the deep of this noir mystery foggy layer, we get this Drake guy, and what do we get at the end? Some G-men are scraping his name off the window, and he's faded out. And it kind of reminds me of Reckless Volume 1, when Ethan is fighting a guy with a machete, and he's like, you got the wrong guy. Like, I work for the CIA. And, that's it. The mystery ends there. We don't get any more info, and it's kind of faded out. And so I saw some parallels where, Brubaker is so smart that that's how the real world works. You think you found some real mystery, you tried to solve it, you got in too deep, and you realize you're in over your head.
Yeah, and I think this also, went to like the term, the story, the fade out. Yeah, at the end, no one got I said, Charlie and Gil set out to right a wrong. Gil doesn't live to see it. Charlie didn't get it because the machine is just too big. It's too powerful. Like I said, the FBI cleaned up its mess by bringing, by getting Drake the hell out of there.
The studio cleaned up there.
Yeah, the studio cleaned up their mess. No one knows that the murdered star was murdered. No one knew about the baby. No one knows that Tyler is gay. No one knows Maya's actually Mexican. And Charlie is just left. It kind of reminded me of that scene in that one-year show on AMC, Low Winter Sun, where the guy that played Bedecker on Breaking Bad was the only guy that put together all the corruption. He brought it to the powers that be, and they basically said, yeah, we know. Fuck you. Get out. And they fired him. And he's going,
here's a more cynical one.
Right.
It's the end of 1984 where the guy finds the whole conspiracy of Big Brother, and at the end he just cries, "I love Big Brother."
It's like, it's like Charlie's like, and you just know that he's going to go screw it up with Melba. Dottie's going to be. Like I said, he's done. It's time for him to fade out. So
I agree with you, Eric. I do like that the Brubaker uses, a lot of sometimes the ambiguous story things, but there is a part of dialogue I just want to remind you of here where Brodsky's talking to Charlie and he says, and so this guy, maybe he thinks he's got something on the old man Thursby, a way to put the whole studio under J. Edgar's thumb. But for it to work, he needs Val Summers to give him some kind of evidence. Only she won't give it up or anything. Not on Thursby or the studio. Nothing. And so this guy cracks, maybe. So he can't stand it. That his power doesn't work on her. And maybe after he's done with her, with everything, he calls looking for help, all busted up. Like it's her fault he's got it wrong about Thursby. Like it's her fault she didn't have any commies to give up. So it's like this guy was sort of like a wrecking ball and, he's looking for commies in the Hollywood system. The Hollywood system is messed up. Like we've seen, this whole story talks about, all the pornography and the cults and the, victimizing children, and there's all this horrible stuff. But that's not what the FBI was there for. They weren't there to clean that up. They were there to find communists. And of course, that makes him an enemy to the studios, and the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend thing kind of is where it wraps up to me at the end with Brodsky and Charlie, and why Brodsky saves or helps Charlie is because he's like, look, I'm just here to keep the studios clean, and you don't got anything on the studio. The person you were looking for all along was this FBI guy, and now you're going to be made aware you're not going to cause us any problems because you know everything now, and you know that I'm not going to let you anyway. And the tough break is, he's FBI. You're fucked. You can't do anything. So, and that's where you get the end line. Christmas comes every year, right on schedule. Just keep on trucking on, and then Charlie goes out where he started in a drunken stupor, and he just there's no justice in this world. And
no, but I get that. But if they wouldn't have put that line in, you cover up an abortion. If you want to cover up an abortion, you got to give up a commie. I don't know. Like I said, I just think that there is more to it than that. That maybe Brodsky doesn't have the entire story. I mean, he gives it to Charlie the way he knows it, but I just can't keep thinking.
You could be right. I'm not saying you're wrong.
I just keep thinking that one picture. Now, again, could go one of two ways. It was to show him really getting into the life and getting to bang starlets and hot chicks, playing that part as a producer. That might be the casting couch he's on. But again, that's what I love about these stories is, you know, no one knows for sure except for, you know, Brubaker and Phillips.
Well, I like that, Breen. It's really smart that you're bringing this up because we've seen how many layers of deception and different points of view there are, and just no one has the full story. And, you know, Brodsky is in charge of cleaning stuff up. He cleaned it up. He got as much evidence as he could, and he drew some dots that make a bunch of sense. And that's what we get as readers. But that doesn't mean it has anything to do with what actually went down. And I really do appreciate that you're pushing on this point of it doesn't really make sense for a guy who's literally an FBI agent, has been trained, he's undercover for this long, would just snap because he didn't get enough evidence at a party one night.
Yeah, if only Ed and Sean would come on to one of these and tell us what they really meant.
Oh, man, that'd be so great. They've been on a lot of other channels. I might just have to reach out.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think they'll be receptive.
Yeah, Sean go, wait a second. Didn't I block that Ash guy?
Oh, wait. We might have to rebrand and launch a new channel and then get them on.
Oh,
and it's
man.
literally like
No, that's it. No, that was Crash on Phonics that you meant to block.
Oh, that's pretty priceless. But what were you saying, Ash?
No, nothing. I better not to dig in my own hole.
That's fair. Well, we got Breen's take. Nalo, did you get to dig in enough, or did you have a few more things to cover on this issue?
Well, are we having a separate section to talk about the book, or?
I wanted to wrap that up, and then we were going to jump over into that where we give the overall.
I dug in enough for this issue per se.
Okay, Breen went, and Ash, you.
I'm good.
Any less? Okay. Well, then we can open it up to the overall thing. And Ash, I hadn't forgot about what you said about the ending. Did you want to leave that towards the end, or did you want to start with that?
No, I mean we'll just take it organically. I'm some of the things are starting to come in more clear as we were discussing that last issue, because it was the last issue. Not that I had a problem with it, I just didn't feel like it clicked with me. But as we started talking about some of the things, and Breen was mentioning, you know, the whole abortion thing, I was like, oh yeah, something. Okay, I can see that, and started to become more clear that this was really about the FBI being the devil. You know, and again, it's the classic Brubaker misdirection where you think you're supposed to be looking over here when you should have been looking over there. But yeah, I'm gonna hear what you guys what your thoughts are, because this is I know for you at least for sure, Skip, if not Nalo too, like your favorite book. So I want to hear what's so meaningful about it to you guys.
Sure, Nalo, take it away.
Sure. Well, I can just say Ash, what number episode are we on for the CriminalCast?
This is 9.
9, wow. So we've done a lot, and I love all the books we've covered, but I can just tell through, you know, my experience of these last 3 episodes that this book to me has the most to chew over, you have that cast of characters in the beginning. Each one has its own perspective, its own little peephole into the industry, and us as readers probably get the most of what's actually going on, and we're still here debating what happened. And I just find this to be, I said in the beginning, like quintessential noir. If I heard of noir and probably saw it on like the Rugrats at the cartoon, it's like movie studios, guys with hats on, you know, foggy rooms, like damsels in dresses, FBI agents, G-men, and book just has it all. And I think that issue I said, that was my favorite. The one that I said was my favorite right before the climax. The next one is the climax where Gil gets shot, and you know, Breen said it best, like it's right out of a movie. Like, and so I've been watching some Paul Thomas Anderson films lately, and I just feel like the Fade Out is, you know, it's a script that's been developed into a comic and really showing the medium of comics in a way that if you saw the Fade Out movie, you'd probably always be saying, you know, read the graphic novel instead. And I just, yeah, we can let the conversation go organically or however long it needs to go. But Criminal is, you know, amazing and has these different character studies and shows us like underbelly, but it's kind of like an ongoing, just world that exists that you don't really get to experience if you're not a criminal yourself. Where this is just, to me, I could reread this the most out of all the Brubaker books, and I have most of them in hardcover now, and this is the one I think I could reread the most and just has so many layers. So I'll leave it there for now.
I agree with you real quick just about the rereading. One of the phenomenal thing about these books, I mean, when I close them, I feel satisfied, like I got a great story, but they're so enjoyable to read from panel to panel. Brubaker is a wordsmith. And I know I have this reputation for over glorifying, my favorite writer, Frank Miller, but they have a similar quality of why I like them both, because they both feel like words. I just love reading from panel to panel. The way that they put the words together, the way that they talk, the voices that they give the characters, it's just so fun to read. It's like just looking at good artwork, that appeals to you. You just want to stare at it. There are some writers who can concoct a good story, but I don't necessarily care about how they put the words, together. And I feel a little bit ineloquent in the way I'm saying this, but if you know what I mean, I think you know what I mean. And the Fade Out, I'm glad we do this cast. I'm glad you guys got me into criminal stuff. I got to tell you, this is not a book I ever would have read in my entire life, just seeing it on the shelf. I would have seen them in like the Fade Out, it's 1940s. Why the hell am I going to read this? Like, it doesn't hold anything to me on the cover, like on the surface. But this book is so much more than what it seems. And I think it's kind of sad to me that this book probably is not as popular as it should be, just because of the subject material. Like it's a 1940s Hollywood. Most people that are reading comics that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for superheroes. They're looking for really weird and wacky stuff. Maybe they're looking for some, anime, manga style stuff. I don't know, but they're not looking for classic, old school, something that looks like it's Casablanca. They're like, oh, that seems boring. And I was like, I just want to urge anyone who might have any inclinations like that, don't pick up any one of his criminal books or this book or any of the books that we've covered on this. You will be amazed. The writing in this is just a step above. It's like in another class. It's like the difference between, college sports and professional sports. It's just Brubaker and Phillips are playing in another league. And no amount of description from us, I think, talking about it and reminiscing about our enjoyment can really convey that until you sit by yourself and crack the book open and have your own personal experience with the book.
Well said. Eric Breen?
Indubitably. Ash, I gotta give you a compliment.
Oh, wow. Gotta write this
Since
down.
I've known you, I've heard you say so many times, I saw that and I went, yeah, right. Why would I want to read this? So many times it's become kind of like a running joke between the two of us. But you do what most people never do after that. You give them a chance. And you read those or you try those. And I said, not many people will do that after they make that first judgment. So that is, and I'm being, absolutely sincere when I say that. I don't do that as often as you do. And I said, it's an admirable trait.
Well, thank you. I try to respect other people's thoughts and opinions. I really do. So that's what leads me. Go ahead.
No, I said, as for Brubaker and Phillips, they must be a fan of this band. Anybody remember They Might Be Giants?
Yeah.
There's a song called Don't Let's Start. And one of the lines in the song is, no one in the world ever gets what they want, and that is beautiful. That's a one-sentence description of Brubaker's writing.
It is.
Yeah.
Nobody gets what they want in these damn books. Even Dottie didn't get what she wanted.
No,
Dottie
nobody
wanted.
Does.
Dottie wanted Charlie, and he goes off and he's with his best friend's wife. Like, it's just so messed up.
And and he won't go to bed with her.
He's
Every
with his
criminal
best
book.
friend's girl. He's with his best friend's girl. Like Breen with the music references over here.
That's I said every criminal book we've read. Nobody ever gets what they want.
Mm-mm.
But they get what they need.
If you try sometimes.
Oh my goodness.
They might be the Rolling Stones.
It might be. As far as I'm concerned, they're the Rolling Stones of comics.
To Brubaker, we can now write our own masterpieces.
Hey, speaking of writers, real quick, Wes did a video yesterday or 2 days ago talking about Brian Azrael using one of Max Allan Collins' characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I left a comment that was kind of salty. About a half hour later, I get a response from Max Allan Collins telling me not to speak for him.
Wow, that's so funny. So he watched it.
Yeah, he must have. I don't know. I guess I don't know how he got to that video, but because he had Wild Dog take a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk because he's using the January 6th as a plot point in Suicide Squad.
Mm.
And I said the only reason why he had a problem with that is he turned Wild Dog into an evil conservative. And then I said he saw it. So, whoops.
Oops.
Wow.
All right, Skip. I need to know what is about this book makes it your favorite.
I mean, if I don't build it up at all and just make it like very plain as day, I just feel like I'm Charlie. Like I have friends like Gil. I won't say any names.
Dead.
Some of them, yeah. Others in prison. Some of them still amongst us free people. I can let my principles and my heart get me into trouble, lickety split, like quick, fast, and in a hurry. I've written music for years and stories and scripts more recently, so I've got that thing there. I just so in kind of how my mind works. I don't drink as much as Charlie, not anymore. But just like so many things about the character of Charlie are very easy for me to identify with. And then if I take myself out of it, and then kind of zoom back a little bit more, it's a lot of what we've covered. The rich character work that was done within the book. I have a big interest in Tinseltown, and the whole process of Hollywood from when they started up until, because I've been into video production and all that stuff since, for almost about 20 years now. So learning about the history and all of that stuff and then how it was tied into this book was interesting. There's some things that Brubaker wrote in the back of the hardcover, talking about research for it, and he listed the books that he read to research for it and everything, and talking about how obviously he wanted to be very identifiable, but all of that history only works up into the point that to where the story will take precedent, but it's nice to see that he still grounds the story so much. So all of that stuff interested me in as well. If we go to the art, we've talked about it a lot. I feel like personally, this is Sean Phillips' best work, especially once you start to get towards the kind of middle of Act 2 all the way towards the end, especially this the last two to three issues, just so tight, very well. The expressions on the faces and everything was just so masterful. The composition of the frames, and obviously the views from the ocean to the beach things, even within the forest, everything was just rendered so properly, whether they were inside of a building, outside of a building, or whatever. I never felt like there was a setting or a scene, if you will, that Sean Phillips didn't lay out the lines so properly. I don't feel like he lacked any terrain that you put him in. I feel like he was just laying a smackdown on it. And then, of course, I've talked about it a lot, but Elizabeth Brightweiser's colors. Not that these are my favorite colors from her. Some of them, I like a lot of it. I think my favorite colors from her are still probably My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. But this particular book, I feel like they matched and met Phillips' line work perfectly. The three of them together, and with whoever did the lettering too, because the lettering I was paying closer attention to, and that stands out on its own. But the 3 or 4 of them were in a groove and in sync that I have not seen to this height in any of the other books that they work together, or that young Jacob Phillips has gotten to, even with his father. You know, I don't think he's gotten to the level of achieving with his father what the 2 and 3 of them did in this particular book. So I just feel like it's the height of all of their work together. Even if this wasn't the best thing that Brubaker's written, it's still my favorite. So with all of those things together, that easily makes it. And then the end. The reason why I like the end so much is a little bit what I said before. This is how noir movies, like I've seen so many of them end. It doesn't always end resolved. Like real life, we don't always get closure of things. We will die. A lot of us will go to our grave with so many things in our life, never settled, no answers had before we passed away, no answers given to those that are still amongst the living that mourn us. And it's just too tangible and real to like not affect me in such a way. So the ending of it, when he runs out in the street and he's just like, you know, he wants to scream, but he doesn't. Charlie has been screaming this whole damn book with all of his actions. And he finally gets to a point where he's like, it don't fucking matter what I do. It's like what Brodsky said. This shit's just going to keep going. I'm not even going to take the energy to yell out the frustration. I'm going to swallow it. I love the book.
All right. Well said. I
Preach.
appreciate knowing that. I like hearing other people's viewpoints, because I can always see the book through my own lens. So it's always fascinating to me to see how other people's experience in life and their worldviews and stuff, how they see. And sometimes it really aids my own appreciation of the book when I can see like, oh, there's other ways to appreciate it than the way that I got out of it alone.
Definitely. Same.
I can agree with you, Skip, like, and maybe many readers feel very relatable to Charlie. And even if you're not a male, it's just like you can relate to him in the sense you're invisible in this world as he may be, and you're just as lost as he is. So just off the basis, you can relate with him. But then if you have more traits like him, you can feel even more related. But I had a question to primarily Breen and Skip, just because this is not their first time reading it. But Ash, you're welcome to reply, of course. But one thing I appreciated and we talked about previously, but I now want to talk about it, that we can talk about the whole book, is those Victory Street production movie posters that are like at the beginning or end of each. Well, they're so good and they're so amazing artistically. But one thing, to answer your question, Ash, of like what's so good about this book, is like you get it through Criminal by reading like all the issues, that there's like some lore and like there's like a kingpin maybe or something. But here, like there's just like inherent lore. And I like, Ash, as well, you pointed out the misdirection where, you know, the big bad here is similar to the Reckless Volume 1. It's someone who works for the federal government, but you get a lot of bad anyway of all this like old time movie studios and you know, bad kind of films, and you know the lengths they go through to produce them, and you know the fact that people in those films were part of the movie studio from when they were like 6 or 8 or 10 or something to that effect. It just kind of is, you know, ill-defined. It's shows you very dark stuff in that sense, but at the same time, it's just like adds this kind of like a lore. Like you have this like camp guy, you got his movie posters, you have these like kid actors who are now grown up, and some of them are dead, and like I just feel like that in only 12 issues you can talk about these, you know, production companies as if they existed. And I also just wanted to add, like in terms of like with Reckless, I was saying in the film Inherent Vice, came to mind. I think we talked in the beginning about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with this book, but I just want to bring up one other film, which is called Hail Caesar by the Coen brothers.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the best movie, but the plot is exclusively about the Hollywood writers, communists, and people after them, and the fact that they actually do have secret meetings about being communists and wanting to write about it. And you see that in this book a bit. And so that's a film that if you do like The Fade Out, you should check out. But it's not the best Coen Brothers film, but it's very similar to some levels of this book.
Definitely.
Very cool. Well, guys, I think we covered up this book. This was a long 3-part episode. This is the first time we've done a multi-part. Well, no, it's not. We did a 2-parter on Cruel Summer. So this is our longest 3-parter. This was a fantastic read. And I say that, I just feel like every single time I pick up a Brubaker book, as Erica says, my favorite Brubaker book is the one I just read. And it just becomes like that. I fully expected, I shouldn't fully, I guess this was the one I was least interested in because of I was like, whatever, it's, I want to see criminals. Like it's more sexy, I guess, think of like Criminal, that the Hollywood writers are just doesn't sound like it'd be interesting, but the testimony or the testament to his skill is that he turns it into something extremely compelling, and you just want to read it over and over again. With that, what book should we be doing next? I put it in the chat. Dominic is asking us if we covered Incognito yet. We have not covered Incognito yet. What books do you guys have any desires to see a next book for the next episode?
Well, we're starting to dwindle down on the Brubaker Phillips. Is there?
Oh, we got quite a bit. We don't have to do all Phillips though. For example, Incognito is. I'm pretty sure that's not Phillips. I don't know.
No, my vote would be a double hitter. My heroes have always been Junkies and Bad Weekend. It's about 4 comic books worth of content, which is equivalent to an act of Fade Out.
I'm definitely down for Junkies. I like Junkies. I like it more now than when I've first read it. I have a big appreciation.
Well, actually, that'd be equivalent to about 6 issues because that's about a 72-page.
All right. Well, then we can only do one of them.
So,
but I kind of do want to do the 3 issues from the 12-parter we did at some point. So why don't we pick one and do that next, and then do the other one after that?
We still have quite a bit of books to cover, and I would like to caution trying not to just go for all the best books first, and then we trail off on the not as best books. I'm sure that they're all good, but sometimes saving some of the big powerhouses for later might not be a bad idea. I personally don't necessarily know, but there are some off the beat books that you might not be thinking of.
So you want to do Velvet next, is what you're saying?
I don't mind necessarily doing any of the books, but what I would caution is like, oh, these are the top 5 books that they've done. Let's do all those first. Well, then you're not saving any of the best for last.
Well, we would still have a couple criminals left after that.
Oh, we've got quite a few. We've only done 2 of the criminal series. So that was one thing I was thinking of, is we could go back to doing a criminal book. We got Scene of the Crime, which is a book that he did before Criminal with Michael Lark. I'm
down to do that one.
We got the Sleeper series. We've got Velvet. We've got Incognito. We've got I'm trying to remember all of them.
That'd take us 6 months to get through.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, eventually I want to get
Fattel. We have Fattel.
The real big bad boy is what is it? The Killer Be Killed, or what is it called?
Killer Be Killed.
Killer Be Killed. Okay, I got it right. There's a series of old kung fu movies that have a similar name that I mix the names up all the time.
I don't have all those.
Ash, are you only going to read Brubaker books if they're scheduled with a stream?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm going to be reading Brubaker's DC stuff and his Marvel stuff.
I meant his independent stuff.
For this show, as of now, I want to keep it to the non big two stuff.
No, I meant, are you gonna read them like independent of the stream?
I'm not sure I understand your question. I'm sorry.
He's asking if you're gonna read them on your own or wait until we have a stream scheduled for that story.
I'm probably, well, depending on what they are. If we're not going to do it for like a year, then I might read it independent. But if it's a book we might be coming up, I might just wait because I like to get that fresh take, you know. Oh, here's another book. Dead Enders is an older one of his. He did with Vertigo. I don't know if anyone's read that one.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I read it.
Anyway, well, I guess we've got time to make that decision, but I'm going to have to bow out here in a sec.
Well, yeah, we're in the stream here. I was just seeing if we could get something to nail down. I'm pretty much, like I said, I'm wide open. My only caution is don't pick all the best books first. But I can't do that because I haven't read them all. So I don't know which. I take yours for the most part.
The two that we were just talking about, that would still leave us 4 criminals after that, if your calculations are correct. So do you want to do one of those other 4 next, or like I said, My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, or the Part of Bad Weekend?
My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies is a book that I haven't read yet. I would be down to do that one. I'd be down to do. I have all the criminal books now, so I'd be down to do the next criminal book in the series. Like I said, I'm down to really...
Junkies too, because Junkies is in one of your hardcovers.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's a kind of a bummer because I have the hardcover of Always Been Junkies, so I guess I have 2 copies of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, maybe a surprise gift to someone.
Yeah, that was like when you got it for like $5, right? It was like crazy cheap on Amazon or something like that.
It might have been. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it'll look good on the shelf. That's what I'm talking about.
Indeed. Well, anyway, yeah, we can figure it out. But
well, I wanted to give the audience a chance to know if we could possibly.
Oh, okay. I'm down for Junkies.
Junkies.
All right.
All right, ladies and gents.
Junkies.
So go get yourself, if you haven't already, My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. This is not labeled criminal, but Ed Brubaker's called it, I believe, the unofficial book 8 in the criminal series. So
yeah, it's kind of like pulp.
You can pick it up. Very, very inexpensive on Amazon. You can get it on Comixology. These books are so amazing. You just cannot go wrong. You want these in your collection. So get this, read them, join us here approximately 2 weeks. We'll post it up. You'll be aware of when we're going to go, and come back and join us. Participate in the chat because it's really fun to do the show with these guys and each other, but having you guys throw in your own opinions and ideas and stuff really it does make things a lot it makes it more fun. So we're going to wrap this up now. Eric's got to go fast. He's going to turn into a pumpkin, so I'm going to let him say the goodbyes, and we are out of here.
Yes, we are. But if you want to keep listening to us, I am going to go live because I'm just got a little energy. So I'm going to stay up and talk about the Fade Out a little bit more, maybe other Brubaker books, but definitely the Fade Out. So if you go to twitch.tv/Skipintosh, I will be over there talking about it. And whoever wants to join me can join me over there. So twitch.tv/SKIPNTOSH. We will see y'all over there. And thanks for coming out. God bless you. Good night.
Good night, kids.